Welcome to the fourth branch program. Glad you can make it. I am MD. This program is dedicated exclusively for those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. Stay tuned as we begin the discussion of a very important, interesting, and enlightening topic. Hope to hear from you soon. Happy listening. Tyson Fury said that racism is a sign of ignorance. Ignorance is the biggest threat to any democracy. It is, however, the ignorance of the ignorance which represents the greatest danger to society. It is what turns an ignorant man into a lunatic. Thus lies the danger, the peril even of a man, a community, a state, a country, yes, even a society. John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, said that the ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of us all. Indeed, it does. We've seen it, have we not? We've witnessed it. We are all living it, are we not? All men are born ignorant. Many have chosen to stay and live in ignorance. Only a few recognize ignorance is indeed the root and stem of all evil and choose to be ignorant no more. Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the fourth branch program. First, a warning. This program is not suitable for all audiences. I repeat, the content of this program is not for everyone. To find out if it's suitable to you, answer the following two questions. Question 1. Would you entrust your teenage daughter to a non-rapist? Question 2. Would you have a non-pedophile cared for your toddler? Once again, question 1. Would you entrust your teenage daughter to a non-rapist? Question 2. Would you have a non-pedophile cared for your toddler? Your time is up, obviously. If you had difficulty answering either question, this program is not for you. If you answer yes to either or to both questions, this program is definitely not for you. But if both of your answers are absolutely not, this program is catered exclusively to you. You should stick around. It is enlightening, educational, and informative. Join me here on the fourth branch at 10:30 a.m. every Saturday. And every weekday at 2 p.m. This is the fourth branch.
Common sense in a world of chaos.
This program will resume in just a moment. Racism in America. Today, we begin the series on what it is like for blacks in America. Every time the conversation about racism, discrimination is brought because of some action that are caused either by police brutality or some protests made by those who are impacted by police brutality or the justice system, the conversation almost always dies as soon as it begins. For the longest, whites have ignored it, shrug it off, or minimize the fact that blacks have been under constant attack by society, by the whole system here in the United States. We, blacks, we live it, we experience it, we witness it, we lament about it, we cried about it, we shout about it, and nothing has happened even beyond slavery. And the reasons are many. And what makes it even more difficult to solve is the fact that the country is divided. Not divided between Democrat and Republican, but rather divided between those who have knowledge and those who choose to stay and live in ignorance. As such, the very solution to solve the race relation in America is going to take a very long time. Here at the fourth branch, we have taken upon ourselves the task to remove ignorance, which is the biggest obstacle to even our democracy. For the past few years, and I must say right off the bat, we have decided to begin this series not because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump did not invent racism, did not create discrimination in America. As I mentioned many times, Donald Trump did not make America or the Republican Party what it is today. He simply helped to expose Republicans, members, legislators, constituents for who they really are. As such, the discussion about race in America has absolutely nothing to do with Donald Trump. It is a series we have been preparing for quite some time, well before Donald Trump even thought about running for president, let alone become president of the United States. The biggest problem of solving racism in America is not because there is no solution. It is because of the actions of a few, unfortunately, who have the lever of the government, who have a very big mouth, and as such, they're able to spread hatred, they're able to spread their ideology, and as long as there is a divide in the country, it benefits their agenda. And our job at the fourth branch is to discuss the many aspects of what causes this problem in the country, at least if we know about it, and those in power, those who have the level of government, maybe, just maybe, they can do something about this predicament which has plagued the nation for quite some time. Example. Every time that there is either an execution of a black, usually unarmed, by a police officer, there is outrage, protest, and of course the victim family mourn, grieve, and there is a few days of conversation in the media about the state of affairs, but equally on the side of those who support discrimination, who support racism, there is a very different side of the conversation. We recall very clearly when Trayvon Martin was killed in Florida, Fox in particular opened its microphone to give a voice to the very individual who actually committed the crime. Everything at all that has to do with blacks, usually you will find that individuals who are overwhelmingly Republicans are very inclined to blame the victim for being the victim. And we at the fourth branch, we ought to provide knowledge, information, facts in order to alert of such, but also with the ultimate objective of forcing changes to be made to minimize or even prevent occurrences of such from continuing in the country. We can philosophize a lot about the state of race relation in the United States. It probably will not get us anywhere because that is something that's been ongoing for decades. At the election of Barack Obama as President of the United States, there were a number of individuals, especially those with a microphone on the Republican side, Rush Limbaugh come to mind, that proclaim the end of discrimination in America. So here it is, the country elected a black man, so we can no longer talk about discrimination in America. I don't know if he was trying to be funny or sarcastic. In fact, during the Obama's tenure as president, discrimination has increased and rampant in the country. It is not difficult to recognize those who discriminate. They're usually the ones who are very eager to blame those who are victimized because of race. Fox comes to mind. Whenever there is a black individual who is victimized, either through individual civilian act or most of the time through police brutality, turn to Fox and you will find that that individual, the victim, actually deserves what happened to him or to her. So it is not difficult to know who is at the root of perpetuating discrimination and racism in America. And we will also get to the bottom of all those. It's not just, this series is not about police brutality, or at least it's not just about police brutality. It's about a whole system established in society which nurture discrimination in the country. And we will also address the side of the coin that shows why it is important to work towards eliminating, eradicating, if at all possible, this very behavior in our midst. When we return, we will establish some ground rules, and we will also put the basis of this discussion, as mentioned at the top of the program, which is going to be an ongoing discussion about various aspects of what causes a war on blacks in the United States. It is that important. We'll be right back. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, inviting you to join me every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and every weekday at 2 p.m. for discussions of social political issues and to dissect the meaning and the importance of current events, as well as to understand topics of legislations. The Fourth Branch Project is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to work towards achieving a more perfect union by removing ignorance, the biggest obstacle to our democracy. Join me on our next social media broadcast. See you then. Right off the bat, let me establish a few, put a few rules, or rather establish a basis for the discussion. Number one, I only refer to black as blacks, not African American, not people of color. I must say that I never understand why there is a need for a different expression to refer to blacks. Those two expressions may be used in case we are quoting someone or in case we're having a discussion that requires that we use that expression so other individuals who have not been up to speed yet understand that we're talking about blacks. Second, as mentioned earlier, the war on blacks is going to be a running series. We will most likely, at the very least, on a weekly basis, discuss an aspect of the war on blacks in our society. Whether it's racism, discrimination, prejudice, we will address a topic which touches on that. And of course, as usual, here at the fourth branch, we will, of course, provide enough information to help making decisions to improve the situation. For this particular topic, we are encouraging you to participate in the discussion, especially if you are among those who are impacted. I mean, blacks. Now, if you have a way to improve the discussion, don't be shy. Let us know, contact us. If you have any you feel very comfortable with, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, email, let us know. As mentioned before and over, this is going to be a running series, which means it's going to be with us for a while until this problem disappears or is minimized enough to think we have made enough progress. During the 2016 presidential election, we did a little bit of poking around in regard to the race relation in America, especially because obviously Donald Trump was at the center of bashing people of different demographics and different race, different gender, and so on. So we asked the question, to any white individual, we ask, are you racist? Needless to even mention what the answer is, it was absolutely not. Now, when we change the question and we say, do you discriminate against black? Are you prejudiced? We usually get a little bit of hesitation from the white individual, whether a he or a she, but the answer usually is, no, of course not. We do not discriminate. We don't see anything wrong with blacks. Now, I must admit to those, there were a few white individuals who almost, you would say, they felt pride to say that they were racist. But those are a few knuckleheads who want to identify themselves as the white nationalists. They feel that there is some pride in saying that they want to be part of the conversation as the group which spread hatred, discrimination in the country. But those were very few individuals who would want to be known and even identify themselves as such. But in general, you would say that if you go today, once again, and have the same type of conversation with whites, you will get pretty much the same answers. Do you discriminate against black? Are you prejudiced against black? Even those who do, and there are millions of them in the country, the answer will most likely be no. We don't do things like that. We are civilized people. That's what, when it dawned on me, and I said, if that's the case, if that is indeed the case, that you have just a very small group, I mean, so small that you can push them to the side, the fringe of society, who happen to want to say, yes, we are not white nationalists and we discriminate. But beyond that, there's no such thing. Nobody discriminates. And if that's the case, why do we have discrimination in the United States? Why this problem? Because, hey, no white discriminate. In fact, those who are upfront enough to acknowledge that there is this problem called discrimination in the United States, they also believe that it's a small number. Now, if it is indeed that case, now let's take a look at a few scenarios. Remember 2012 when Mitt Romney was running for the presidency of the United States and he got stuck with 47%. He was caught on tape talking about the 37% who is never going to vote for him because, well, you know, those people are, well, food stamp people. Now, I don't have to go through the process of explaining whenever you hear a Republican candidate mention that, it's a code word for blacks because they always associate blacks with food stamp. So when you hear Mitt Romney saying things like that, that's really what he meant. All those people are blacks, they gonna vote for Barack Obama, then I don't even have to bother about that. Hey, leave them alone. And remember Rick Santorum, when he was running for the presidency of the United States, he also make reference to the fact that we're not gonna let people on welfare take our hard-earned money. It's a code word for, you know, people on welfare, blacks. Republicans in general, I've been saying that. Now, the very problem with the conversation about race relations in America is the fact that there is already a group, most Republican, who are predisposed to think of blacks a certain way. I already explained that. I went through that when we were discussing the welfare, the entitlement system. So I'm not going to debate that here, but I just want to make sure that you understand that there is a very large group, not a small group of people, not a few people. It's a very large sector. We even have candidates for president talking to their fan base, talking to their supporters, and alluding to the fact that, you know, people on welfare are black, people on food stamps are black. Now, we already debate that, and we show that the data clearly show that's not the case. But that's besides the point. That's the message that they're passing around, and that's a message that's believed by most Republicans. So whenever they're talking about situation like this, they say welfare, that means black. They say food stamp, that means blacks. Now, you have to admit that the perception problem has been not helping solving the situation, because there is already a perception of blacks. First, brought into the country as slaves, when a decent president found out that it's really the right thing to do to get rid of slavery in the country, we had a civil war. Now, to give you a sense as to, we're not talking about just a small group of people who feel a certain way, and that's why we have discrimination. And I'm going to show you as we go along that it has infiltrated every aspect of our society, to the point that it is extremely difficult to get rid of it unless we expose it and we talk about it. And that's the irony of the whole conversation about race in the United States, because every time something happens that clearly point finger to race as being the issue, there are always two camps. The camp that's saying that yes, this is because of race, and there is the other camp, and it's always obvious, the other camp that want race discrimination to continue to be part of the society here in America. They always argue to the contrary. Fox is one of them. You can set your watch on that. Anytime that there is a police execution of a black individual, tune into Fox and you'll find out that the black that was killed was guilty, and that's why he got killed. In fact, he deserved to have been killed. So that's why the conversation about race in America is not that it's impossible to solve it. It's because the same people, maybe ancestors, who fought the Civil War to keep slavery are the same people today who have a voice, who are in a position in government that want to make certain those situations stay. And we will also debate that and show that we're not just talking for the sake of talking. We will show you that those situations have been around, they stay as part of our society, and makes it very difficult to remove racism and to eradicate discrimination in the country, because there is a group, and that group is a very large group. In fact, what makes it so difficult to solve the problem of discrimination in the United States is because the group that still harbor discrimination in their heart control most of the major aspect of organization, agencies, and businesses in our society. That's why we ask the question, if discrimination, if you ask every white whether he or she discriminate or prejudice, and the answer is no, then why do we have this problem? Well, the answer is pretty obvious. They indeed do discriminate, but it is impossible, or nobody is ever going to accept doing something or harboring something that's as bad as discrimination. So the answer is always going to be no, we don't discriminate, of course. Now, if there is no discrimination, why do blacks have so much difficulty getting a job, even when the economy is good? Now, according to the data, the unemployment is 3.7. Black unemployment is twice as much. Well, almost twice as much. And when the economy is worse, same thing. There is no discrimination. Why do blacks get passed over for a promotion at the workplace? Why do they get paid less for the same job done by a white individual? Why do they get stopped more frequently on the street than a white individual? It is the discrimination in America permeates every aspect of our society. There is no if and but about it. And the irony is the individual who are most likely to discriminate, most likely to harbor prejudice, are always the one who have the bigger voice to say, no, there is no such thing, or it's not that bad. It is a guarantee that if you're talking to someone that eager to tell you that things are not that bad, watch the behavior, watch the language, watch the action. That individual is most likely going to be someone who discriminates. Now, what makes the idea of solving discrimination in the United States so difficult? You're not going to believe it, but it's because there are equally, especially the past decade or so, has been there's been a lot of progress made, a lot of changes have been made in this race relationship in America. There is no denying that. However, it continues to permeate our society. And the reason, as I mentioned earlier, is because the individuals who have the lever of government, the individual who control businesses, who control many of the large organizations, continue to harbor those type of sentiment towards blacks. That's the reason also, whenever there is a problem of police brutality, police executing blacks on the street, the conversation cannot last too long. That's why the conversation is a 1 or 2 day conversation, and then it disappears from public mind until another police execution of another unarmed black individual. So it is impossible to eliminate or eradicate a problem if the behavior, the reaction, is to deny first there is such a problem. And even when proof after proof after proof keep coming, and that those proofs keep being pushed to the side, it's no longer in the mind, then why look for a solution? And the purpose is to show that at every aspect of our life, of our society, that has been the case for decades. The legislators, people who actually pass legislation, if you look at the type of legislation that they pass, it's usually geared towards to the detriment of blacks. Now we can say minority in general, but blacks in particular. You look at the justice system, same thing. They pass laws and regulation that are more detrimental to blacks than whites. Now, even if whites are caught in the same predicament, guess where the division happen again? They get lighter punishment than blacks, which means at the justice system, it's every aspect of our society is set that way. The justice system makes certain that the white for the same crime get lighter punishment. So our society makes certain that that stays that way. Now, the very individual who control the businesses, the government, and so on, they the very individuals who actually want things to stay that way. Do you want to guess who those individuals are? Overwhelmingly white. That's the reason you may not necessarily recall, especially if you are white, you may have not paid any attention to it, but there was a time in the media, there were a lot of emphasis on a black man get arrested, a black man being pursued by police. And even when the individual was not black, there was emphasis on black hat, black jacket, black shoes. So it internalized in the mind, even in the subconscious of the viewers, of the listeners, that everything that's black is bad. And if you guess it's because that was a conscious decision made by those who own those organizations, those broadcast organizations, that was. And this type of messaging in your subconscious are not easy to get rid of. Because day in, day out, you tune in to a radio station or you're watching a program, news program, the only thing you're hearing, black, 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 everything that's bad, black, black killing, black being pursued, black stealing. That stays in the mind and it permeates in our society. You grow up hearing that thing ringing in your ears every time. You walk down the street, you see a black person, what do? You cross the street because, gee, this is a bad person coming. That is a behavior, unfortunately, that's ingrained in your subconscious, and you do that without thinking. But if I ask a white individual, are you prejudiced? Do you discriminate? The answer would be no. But actions tells you that you internalize those type of things that been bombarded into your subconscious, that when you act, you don't even realize that you're doing that. Two people walk into an interview, one black, one white. The black has a master's degree, the white only has a bachelor's degree. Guaranteed the white will be called, the black has to struggle. Well, why did they choose the white over the black? Well, they can give you 1,000 reasons, but there is only one. A promotion comes, black already has a master's degree and even working towards a PhD. The white sometimes may not even have a college degree, who get picked for the promotion, the white. Well, if you ask, they will give you thousands of reasons. But there is only one. And that's why discrimination in America has been pretty consistent, because there are always excuses to explain away discriminating against. There are always reasons. And there is no way or no reason for anyone to blame those who grew up in an environment as such, created by previous generation, created by those. If you look at Fox, let's say Fox, for instance. Fox is based almost exclusively on those type of controversies, race controversies. Because if you think about it clearly, an individual just got killed, murdered, executed by a white individual, right? Now, any sound-minded individual, let alone a network, would find it necessary to see that as an opportunity to try to bring conversation that help mend this divide, this big divide between black and white. That's what you would have thought. Instead, most program at that time, and it's not just Fox. I mean, I use Fox because Fox has a big mouth, it has a large audience, but there were across the country, in fact, I remember very clearly, there were newspapers that in Florida that automatically went and look and find out something about Trayvon Martin being on social media, things that he said that were bad. Now think about what that really entails. He's a guy that just got killed because of his race, but what is of interest to those individuals who are racist and prejudiced and discriminate is to find what he said that was bad. In other words, they're trying to find reason for his murder, meaning, well, he said bad thing, then it's okay for him to be killed. And at Fox, in the meantime, you have Sean Hannity parading the perpetrator. So discrimination is in the country not because of an individual or a few. It's millions of individuals. And as I will show you as time goes by, that at Fox and on the Republican side in particular, there is always an inclination that anything that happened to a black, he or she deserves it. Because first of all, he or she is black, then what's the problem? And that's also the reason you would notice that society react differently when something happened to blacks. Remember Katrina? When Katrina happened, the government, our government, whose priority is to help everybody, but because it happened to mostly blacks, there was a lot of dragging of feet, a lot of lingering before anything was done. So when I said discrimination permeates in our society, It's not a figure of speech. It's not a hyperbole. It is a reality. And we will show you again as time goes by that it is in every aspect of our society that happen. But we will also very shortly show you another aspect that makes even the discussion of race relation so difficult. Not just because of everything that I just mentioned, because we already know, we can pretty much pinpoint where the problem is. But what makes it so difficult is because, well, when we come back, we will talk about that. Because that is why I believe the race relation in America has been ongoing for so long. It is some people may benefit of it. Others couldn't care less. And when we return, I will show you what makes this discussion so difficult, because not everybody falls into the same category. Join me here on the fourth branch at 10:30 a.m. every Saturday. And every weekday at 2 p.m. This is the fourth branch.
Common sense in a world of chaos.
This program will resume in just a moment. In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies, presenting to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a recent survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore. What makes race relations so difficult in the United States is the following. As many individuals, white, who harbor discrimination feeling, prejudice feeling, or even racist feeling, there are also millions of whites who do not have those type of feeling, who see people for who they are. A black, is another individual, and is not any different than a white. So that makes, when you are talking about race relation in America, it is difficult because you cannot put all the whites in one basket and talk about why things are so bad. In fact, I can go as far back as slavery or beyond slavery, during civil rights, at a time when it was almost prohibitive for any white individual to have any sort of relation with a white. But yet, during that very time, that moment in time, there were whites who were taking the side of defending blacks. In fact, some whites were victimized by that very aspect of their life because they were trying to defend blacks who were being abused, who were being unfairly targeted by other whites. So the idea of putting all white in one basket is foolish. It's not a one size fits all when we're talking about race relation. So that makes it very difficult. But I do understand and grasp the aspect of why certain whites which I found have very little interaction or knowledge about blacks' activities. They seen things on TV or on movies, and they make up their mind. And of course, what I mentioned earlier about the media, who used to pounce the idea of everything that's happening in our society was being done by blacks or something black, whether it's the hat, the jacket, the coat was black. So it was ingrained in people's mind, and the generation grew up thinking that everything that's bad is black. You even have, as mentioned earlier, that individual bidding for the presidency of the United States using that very fact, that very idea as a springboard for their campaign. Now, a few years ago, while I attended college for a degree in journalism, a discussion about the lopsided justice system towards black opened a huge window, at least for me, opened a huge window to understand how most whites rationalize and even justify their discriminatory behavior towards black. It was an eye-opening for me. One individual said that most of the crimes were committed by blacks. Now, mind you, that's untrue, statistically untrue, but someone who is in school studying journalism, meaning we were being taught to research, to investigate stuff before reporting them. Now, that individual must have been in the wrong class. Now, she wasn't alone. I'm just using her as an example, but she wasn't alone who felt that way. But I realized that it's this sentiment that's already part of her life, that harbored in her life, that makes even the idea of just Googling, we have that at our fingertip, just do a few Google search, and suddenly she would have found out that her statement was wrong, incorrect. And as a student of journalism, it was actually the wrong thing to say. And that opened my eyes and really helped me understand why even those individuals who are practicing, who actually have a job in some major news organization, continue to spread those type of misinformation, and most of the time their producer, their editor, would also go along with it because they share those ideals, they share those sentiments. The hell with facts. So our society, as I mentioned on top, has helped perpetuate this very problem in our country: discrimination, racism. So I do understand that racism in the United States is not black and white. It is very complex. And it is complex because of the very fact that there is a group, a very large group, who would go to war, the Civil War, would go to war to keep things the way it is, than to work towards becoming a more decent society. Now, if you recall, during the Civil War, it wasn't just black on one side, white on the other side. There was just white on one side, the side that wanted to keep slavery, and black and white on the other side, the side that wanted to end slavery. So since the beginning of time, there were always plenty of whites who wanted to change things in the country. But unfortunately, even beyond the Civil War, those whites who fought to keep slavery around, those are still around, working to keep discrimination and racism as part of our lives. And I keep referring to Fox, which is pretty blatant, pretty obvious, because they do not hide it. Whenever an opportunity presents itself, they never hide that. They take the side of those who have been harming blacks. Because as far as they're concerned, blacks shouldn't be They're always wrong. Just like there was this large group who prefer to go to civil to have a civil war in the country. Hundreds of thousands of them die just to keep slavery around. So it is no surprise that equally large groups still want racism and discrimination to be around. Caught in that red is the fact that there are many people who simply take the words of those who propagate falsehoods such as discrimination and racism, who give a platform. Not too long ago, Laura Ingraham was praising those people in Charlottesville who committed the act of killing a woman. There is no lack, and they can come back and apologize to have said this and that and the other. And we have, not too long ago in Mississippi, the Republican woman who won the race was caught on tape saying she was going to attend a lynching. And after many tries, she apologized. But what good is the apology? She meant what she said. It is not at all difficult to pinpoint those who still harbor those type of sentiment. The Bible says that man, we, human species, speak out of the abundance of the heart. So when you hear someone say something and then apologize later, it's totally irrelevant. They meant what they say. The apologies is for the public. That's why you see Donald Trump, if they forced him to apologize for something he said or tweeted, he goes back to repeating it in a different way, because that's just the way human beings are. If you hear the person say it, if it comes out of that individual's mouth, the person meant it. The apologies is for society. Remember Ron DeSantis in Florida, race for governor, what he said about his opponent? Yes, Republicans in general harbor the sentiment against blacks. I didn't say all Republicans, most Republicans. And I will show you that it's not just hyperbole either. They pass legislation that are detrimental to black, laws that are detrimental to black. So we know that's the case, but we will bring those things to the surface, because one of the bigger problems of solving anything, in order to cure a disease, the disease has to be identified. Remember when Ebola was doing ravage across the world? In order to bring a cure, scientists had to race against the clock to understand the disease first. You cannot cure a disease without understanding the underlying cause or what makes it happen. Same thing with society, with racism and discrimination. The underlying cause of it, and in the case of human interaction, there are plenty, but there are a few very common, basic factors that help spread this type of disease in the nation. And this is what we're going to do. we're going to talk about it until it is become obvious enough to those who are in a position to change things to do so. Talk about it today when it happened and then stop talking about it. That's no solution because it disappeared from the mind. It's as if it never happened. So our goal here is to talk about those different things that nurture discrimination, racism in the United States, and possibly offer a solution. If nothing else, at least the idea of exposing the problem will suffice to help, at the very least, expand the horizon of those who continue to believe that it's been exaggerated. It's in the mind of the blacks. Those things don't happen that often. Blacks live it, experience it, witness it, mourn its consequences. Whites, oh well, it's not my problem. That's one group. And next time we will show you there are 4, could be more, but 4 major groups of whites and the role that they play in keeping things the way that things are, or helping change things, because there are those 2 groups. Just the same way that during the Civil War there were millions of white fighting side by side with black to end slavery. There were also millions of whites who were determined, we just have to keep slavery around. Same scenario here today. We still have that. Except that it's not being talked about. Nobody wants to touch it because, hey, talking about race in America, that's bad. How do you solve a problem if you keep ignoring it? And that's going to be at least a serious in this program, and to make certain that it stays in the forefront. And from time to time we will bring current events of things that have that kind of impact in our lives. But it's not about just police brutality. It is about everything that makes discrimination, racism okay in certain sectors here in America. Question: why do you think, despite all those murders committed by police officer to unarmed black men, why do you think it keeps happening? Join me next time and we will debate all that. And if you have some thought, advice, comments, criticism, as I mentioned, it's not just about police brutality. It's about everything in our society that helps to keep and nurture racism and discrimination in the country. We will be discussing that as a topic alongside other topics we will be discussing here at the Fourth Branch. We'll be right back. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, inviting you to join me every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and every weekday at 2 p.m. for discussions of social political issues and to dissect the meaning and the importance of current events, as well as to understand topics of legislations. The Fourth Branch Project is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to work towards achieving a more perfect union by removing ignorance, the biggest obstacle to our democracy. Join me on our next social media broadcast. See you then. If you have anything at all that you can do to help improve this program, comment, criticism, and in the discussion of the topic, War on Blacks, you are encouraged to participate one way or the other. Suggestion, stories, anything at all that can help advance this discussion will be of great help to this program. Write to us, contact us via Twitter, via Facebook, via YouTube, via email. We have the same handle, at mducheny, which we'll provide shortly. And I hope you can join us next time, which is Monday at 2 p.m. You can join us next time to continue the discussion on War on Blacks. What will it take to put an end to discrimination in America? I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, inviting you to join me every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and every weekday at 2 p.m. for discussions of social political issues and to dissect the meaning and the importance of current events, as well as to understand topics of legislations. The Fourth Branch Project is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to work towards achieving a more perfect union by removing ignorance, the biggest obstacle to our democracy. Join me on our next social media broadcast. See you then.
The Fourth Branch podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.